Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الذين آمنوا والذين هاجروا وجاهدوا في سبيل الله أولئك يرجون رحمة الله والله غفور رحيم يا بني اذهبوا فتحسسوا من يوسف وأخيه ولا تيأسوا من روح الله إنه لا ييأس من روح الله إلا القوم الكافرون قال ومن يقنط من رحمة ربه إلا الضالون وإذا أنعمنا على الإنسان أعرض ونأى بجانبه وإذا مسه الشر كان يئوسا والذي أطمع أن يغفر لي خطيئتي يوم الدين إن الذين يتلون كتاب الله وأقاموا الصلاة وأنفقوا مما رزقناهم سرا وعلانية يرجون تجارة لن تبور قل يا عبادي الذين أسرفوا على أنفسهم لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله إن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. So the main theme of these verses, as you can tell, is disparity, hopelessness, and being hopeful. So God speaks in the Quran about those people who have hope. He says that it's the hallmark and it's the hallmark sign of a believer that he's successful due to his hope. يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Their hope in Allah. That's what drives them. So what researchers say regarding hope, let's have a look. They say researchers in the field of positive psychology have posited that hope is the single most important feeling state. So now we kind of get the gist of why Allah has spoken about hope so much in the Quran. And you can see from these quotes, it's not just Hazrat Yaqub, Jacob, but also Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam saying that only those people despair of God who are disbelievers. So what that means is it's not just the disbelievers who despair of God, rather it's when we lose hope in God, when we start feeling that, I don't feel like I have anyone there to support me, I don't feel like God is listening to my prayers, or maybe something wasn't accepted the way you wanted it to be, a prayer wasn't accepted the way you wanted it to be, that kind of lack of hope, that takes us towards disbelief. So nowadays, a lot of people have this thought, this kind of this ideology, which is like, oh no, I'm such a bad person, I can't get close to God, I've done too many bad things in my life. A lot of people believe that, whether it's Christians, Jews, whoever it is, they say, Muslims, they say that, oh, I've done this in my life, I've done that in my life. Even if they don't say it, they feel it. They feel that, they've done so much wrong that how could anyone possibly forgive them? And that's because our imagination is limited. And why I say that is because what God is unlimited. We can't imagine what kind of forgiveness he has. There was one story of a companion, and he comes to Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam, and he says, I want to do bad at your hand, but how can I do bad at your hand when my sins are as big and as large as the mountains? Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam just simply said to him, do you honestly think that these mountains or those sins that you have accumulated or piled up over the years are bigger than or larger than God's forgiveness? The main point to understand is who God is. If you don't understand who your God is, how are you going to connect with him? Now, to understand him, we have to take that leap of faith. There's a reason they call it leap of faith. The faith comes first and the knowledge comes afterwards. And what I mean by that is, once you start obeying the Quran, for example, God says, pray to me, I'll forgive your sins. Instead of thinking, well, hold on a second, I don't know if he will forgive my sins because I've done this and I've done that, and I think no one can forgive such sins. Why not try it first? That comes under obedience. You do that obedience first, and then what comes after is the experience. And you experience that love of God that he has for you. That feeling in your heart that yes, God has accepted your prayer. And that striving towards God. When you start going towards him and you start progressing in your faith, that's also a sign that whatever you prayed for forgiveness, has been accepted. Once in Mulaqat, I was talking to Azul and I asked him a question. I asked him pretty straightforward, and he kind of understood what I was trying to say. Otherwise, he didn't sugarcoat it. His answer was pretty simple. I said, Hazur, आप कैसे आप परेशान नहीं रहते हैं? I mean, हमारे जैसे लोग हैं जमात में. And he didn't sugarcoat. He didn't say, you guys are doing really well, you're doing really good. So I'll say in English, I'll say, Hazur, don't you worry, like, there's people like me in Jamaat, like, don't you ever feel like, I was asking, like, how do you deal with the stress? Because obviously knowing Hazur's standards are very high, and he tells us all the time, do 1 hour tahajjud, read this book, read that book, never miss a Mars. There's all these kind of things, right? There's so many expectations, right? And Hazur said to me that, he said, he does this, he sits in a chair, right? And he sits back, he goes, yeah, I do worry. He goes, I'll say in Urdu, goes, फिर मैं अल्लाह ताला को कहता हूँ, लेकिन अल्लाह ताला कहता है कि चलो ठीक है. So then he says that, I say to Allah that, what do I do? And Allah Ta'ala says, don't worry, it's fine, I'll take care of it. So if you know who your God is, you'll better understand him. You'll be able to connect with him. Now, our God isn't some kind of formal God, we speak to him only in this. We can speak to him how we feel comfortable. A lot of people, they find themselves, like, speaking to people, they tell me they find themselves praying to God in a way which is quite formal. It's like formal English. It's not even, they can't even express themselves properly. You should express yourself in the best way, in the way that suits you. Hazrat Masih says that when you pray to God, pray in your mother tongue, pray in the language that you feel best. So that also means that pray in the way that you feel best, because then the feelings and the emotions of your heart will come out. And so, speaking on hope, once you listen to what God says and you see how he forgives you, then this understanding of how much love he has for you will be born in your heart. In fact, there's another story in Hadith with regards to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was a mother and she was running during the Battle of Uhud. She was running, looking for her son. Knowing her son had died, or maybe having that kind of hope in her heart that maybe he's alive. Because obviously she had heard rumors, so she had run to the battlefield. She was picking up every single dead body to look for her son. She was going through the corpses, going through the people who are unconscious, and she was trying to pick up different people, saying, "Is this my son? Is this my son?" And that's another example of how much hope can take you through. During battle, when arrows are flying everywhere, they can take you through and enable you to do, or you can say, achieve feats which otherwise wouldn't be possible. And so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he points at that woman and says to his companions that, look at that woman. Allah loves you more. He loves you more, mankind, than that woman loves her son. Now, if you understand how much love God has for you, then you wouldn't ever be just full of despair, and you wouldn't be hopeless, thinking that, where do I start praying? How can I start praying? I'm in a life sin. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. How can I read Quran? I've just done this wrong thing, or I've just done that. If you understand how much love he has for you, he says himself in the Quran, وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا, that man has been created weak. He knows that we're weak. He knows our weaknesses. He knows our strengths. The only thing he cares about is that we go to him. The only thing he really wants us to do is, just like a mother or any father would feel, is if their son or daughter had left Ahmadiyyat or Islam, true faith and belief in God, the only thing they would really care about is to see their son come back home and say that, I've come back to the faith. Besides that, they wouldn't, say, oh, I don't want to see your face ever again. I mean, except the few who do say that. They might say out of anger, they might say out of rage. But in their heart, what they really want is just to see their son's face again or their daughter's face again. What they really care about is, what they really have, their priority in heart is their love for you. And that's the same with God. The only difference is that God's love is beyond imagination. It's beyond what we can even imagine. So once you have hope in God, hope and faith, they go hand in hand. If you have faith in God, you have that hope that every time you fall down spiritually, you'll climb up. And that's the same thing. You'll see that our spiritual journey is very similar to our worldly journey. You'll see in motivational videos all the time, you'll see videos, people saying that, oh, you'll fall, you get back up again, you'll fall, get back up again. All right? So God works in the same way. He says, when you fall, because you will fall, and I've made you weak, it's natural, that is going to happen. Don't think that you're going to have a perfect life, You're going to have a perfect life and you're just going to, that's it, you're going to, like a Nabi, you're going to be like a prophet and you won't make any mistakes. Don't have those expectations of yourself. Have the highest expectations which are natural. Yes, you will fall, but it's about your reaction. God only cares about your reaction. He wants to see that after you falling down, have you forgotten your God? Whether you're going through a problem, are you going to pray to Him only then? Is that the only time you have hope? Is that the only time you're going to be grateful? He wants to see that when you feel that you've gone to the lowest of the low, you still believe in a God who loves you. Like nowadays, you see a lot of people on this, they're like, oh, you need to love yourself, you need to love yourself. As far as I know, I've never seen in the Quran anywhere where God says you should love yourself. Self-respect is good, and self-esteem is good. But concerning love itself, we're taught to love others. And we're taught that the love of God is enough to take us through thick and thin. So, for example, you got the example of Cristiano Ronaldo, right? People say that the reason why he's so successful, because he said it himself as well, is his mentality. His mentality when he goes into a big game, and this isn't just with Ronaldo, it's with many other people as well, successful businessmen. They all tell you that if you want to be successful, it's about your mentality. The mentality of I will do it, I will achieve, is what takes them to higher stages. And that's what I'm trying to get to the point of that. When you're looking at the spiritual journey, it's the same thing, right? When you believe that, let's say you fall or you flop at some point, you mess up, right? And you start thinking that, that's it, I'm done, I can't go further, I don't have the strength to do more. Or sometimes, like speaking with people, you tell them, oh, why don't you try this? The first thing they'll tell you is, oh, I can't do that, that's too hard for me. They won't even give it a thought. They'll set their limits, like, I can't read that much Quran, I can't do that, I can't even do namaz, They'll just, I don't do that. They've accepted who they are, and they're, I can't do that, That's lack of hope. So, recently I was reading a stat, in fact it was yesterday, and it was saying that the World Health Organization was saying that globally around 800,000 people a year commit suicide. Now, the UK as well, they say in the past few decades, suicide has been on the rise about 10%. And the reason for that is, again, lack of hope. The whole belief of there isn't anyone there who cares about me, there isn't anyone there who loves me. And then that feeling of depression, which is like someone thinking that, there is no way out, and there is no way which I can get what I want or come out of this problem. All of these things, God is providing. He's providing, the remedy for. He's saying that believe in me and I will take care of everything. Now, there's, like, for example, when you look at hope, right? You look at expectations, right? Nowadays, there are so many expectations which have been set by society, whether it comes to beauty, success, or anything related to the world, to the dunya, right? And what we're seeing is people are falling more into depression because they're seeing that they're not reaching those expectations which other people are reaching. Someone's recording his Ferrari and saying, "Oh, look at this," someone's recording, you got millionaires, you got like Mayweather. "Oh, look at my stacks. He's just recording loads of cash," and then it creates that insecurity in people. But the fact of the matter is that all those worldly things, they're temporary, and they're not just creating those expectations which some people can't reach, but they're giving pleasure which is temporary. So, being a human being, it's natural for us to chase pleasure in everything. Our sole purpose to survive, right, is to worship God, right? And that's why God says that when we worship him, there is pleasure. He hasn't made worship something which is boring, right? What I'm trying to say is that when it comes to these pleasures of the world, they're temporary. And what happens is that when you delve into temporary, you can say pleasures, what happens is that you end up feeling, you end up feeling a lack of pleasure, because that will never be enough to give you happiness. It's the same thing when you're going through trouble, you're going through some problems, you'll speak to as many friends as you want, you ask for as much advice as you want, but they'll never be able to really help you, because that help that they give you, yeah, it will help you and it will be good advice, but it won't be the best advice or the best help that God can give you. Point is that everything besides God, right, will take you to a certain point. And from that point, you'll drop and drop and drop again, and you'll never feel the satisfaction that you want to feel. But when it comes to God and you put all your hope and faith in him and you complain to him, for example, when you go to full mulaqat, do you ever see Hazur crying, or do you ever see him sad? Do you ever see him with a strop on his face? Maybe someone has seen him with a strop on his face, probably something most rare. I've never in my 7 years of Jama seen Hazur with a strop on his face. In fact, I'd be going in the room and Hazur smiling and making jokes with me and say, "Oh, Gonzalez, Gonzalo," And so, point being is that him being the one with the biggest burden in the world right now, him being our Khalifa, him being the person who's been divinely chosen to guide not just Ahmadis but the whole world, how much stress and how much of a burden do you think he's carrying? But then when we walk in the room, he's smiling and trying to cheer us up, We're the ones worried, like, have we done enough to make Hazur happy? Hazur just smiles and starts speaking to us, That kind of hope, that kind of trust he has in God that everything's going to be all right. Once you start having that faith in God, and you don't need to be a saint to have faith in God. Some people think that they have to be a certain level to believe in God, right? Once you start having that faith in God, you'll see the results of it. You'll see the results of how he takes care of you. You have that faith in God, and God will show himself to you the way you believe him to be. If you don't believe that he's going to help you, he's going to say, then carry on living this life. You believe I won't help you. But if you believe that he is there for you and he will help you, no matter what the situation is, he will help you, because he doesn't disappoint, he doesn't break his trust. And his door is always open, no matter what you've done in life. His door is always open for that mercy. That door of mercy is always open to you. It doesn't matter what you've done. You've heard the story, Hazur's mentioned it a few times, and he's mentioned it recently in the khutbah, about the person who killed 99 people, and then in the end he gets forgiven. So if you haven't heard the story, you can listen to it on This Week with Hazur. Hazur says that is the mercy and forgiveness of God. He's forgiven someone. And this was a hadith. That story wasn't just a story. It was a story said by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And why? Is because people don't understand how forgiving God is. Even the first few words of the Holy Quran, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, ever merciful. Yet we, because of our own state, because we know we're not ready to forgive people straight away, we think that God isn't ready to forgive us. Change this mentality and understand that God will forgive you. It doesn't matter what you've done, he will forgive you. And even Hazrat Masih Malasam said that there are people who, to such an extent, he says in the Philosophy Teachers of Islam, he says that they get to such an extent of sin or persistence, they do something wrong, they fix up, and they do something wrong again and they fix up. And that keeps on happening to the point that they think, do you know what, I'm cursed. Hazur said himself, alayhi salam, that people think, they believe that they're cursed. They can't strive. They can't get to a high level. That's just the way they are. Hazur says that even those people God forgives. That is the natural state of man. We're gonna flop. We're gonna fail again and again and again. Accept that, but don't accept that you can't succeed. Don't give up. When it comes to God, you don't give up. You never give up. If you give up, you're gonna go to disbelief. You give up, and you'll be just like those criminals who say they're in jail and they say, you know, I've done too much in my life. You know, you see interviews, they'll say, I've done too much in my life. There's nothing left for me. And so because of that lack of hope, they don't even try and fix up. They don't even try and be good. So may Allah Ta'ala enable us, may He increase us and enable us to have trust in Him and faith in Him. And that's, if we can succeed in that, we can succeed in being good believers, believers whom God can be pleased with. وآخر دعوانا والحمد لله رب العالمين.